May the 19th, 2016. Edmonton, Alberta, Canada. Today, the day of the Trug. Today I am seeking a way to introduce you to my rough collection of stories for creating pilgrimage, cancer and destiny. I need a sturdy container for such a disruptive gathering. And today I am also listening to Q with Shadrach Cabango. His CBC interview is Jeremy Irons on how prejudice blinds us to genius. Shadrach and Jeremy are discussing the artful and heart-wrenching movie The Man Who Knew Infinity, to be premiered in Toronto tonight. This is the true story of the South Indian self-taught mathematical genius Srinivasa Ramanujan, who left his homeland during the perilous First World War to develop an astonishing and enormously creative relationship with Professor G.H. Hardy of Cambridge, England. Hardy declared that, finally, he had met his match. Ramanujan was far more than his match, but it cost him his life. Today, over 100 years later, this strange and romantic love of beauty and form inspires me to keep writing, honouring Ramanujan's own recognition that what he was able to express was simply what the goddess had told him. An impossible notion for the dons to swallow. Though we might say that a large part of Ramanujan's life could never be developed, he was obviously profoundly capable of humility, devotional surrender, and a grateful acceptance of what he was shown. Of course, it was initially impossible for him to prove some of his theorems according to Western dictates. Yet his profound insights and creations are still being explored. For me, the experiences of his young wife, left behind in India and soon to become widowed, is yet to be fully digested. Nevertheless, today, with the backdrop of this filmed, scintillating, and heart-expanding love affair, I am developing the idea of the significance of a humdrum vessel of a trug. Do you know what a trug is? Here's a picture of one. Well into my restoration years, I went in search of a trug. Why? I had been asked by Craig Stevenson to write a review of Out of the Shadow, Eco-Psychology, Story and Encounter with the Land by Professor Emerita Rhinda West. Both my reading and writing were slow. Craig was supportive and even sent me a wonderfully encouraging postcard of a close-up view of a snail, which I still display in my clinical studio. West describes her personal and cultural landscape along a section of the Chicago River. She had become involved in efforts to reclaim biodiversity from the invasive results of aggressive woody species such as European buckthorn. Braiding disciplines, West charts the intrusive effects of a globalizing colonial America on the land, on indigenous cultures and language, and on individual and collective personhood and vitality. Committed to the hard work of ongoing rupture and reconciliation, West shows how gathered stories, historically and geographically placed, can not only infect and destroy, but can healthily reseed the psyche through investigating and cherishing what we can perceive of the emergent properties of healing pattern and order from within a recognized brokenness. When my review of West's book was completed, a seeding and personal dream arrived. One single word: trug. Surprise! During my First and Second World War researches, I serendipitously found a simple place where trugs are still made by hand. I had landed straight in the territory of my mother's home in the beautiful county of Sussex in South England. From this historic place, my mother had ventured forth to India as a Salvation Army missionary officer in 1936. Strangely enough, Carl Jung considered that the British people whom he had met when he visited India, December 37 to February 38, really lived at home in Sussex, not India. Jung did not meet my parents. Simultaneously searching for a trug, I discovered the Cookmere River Valley, the Crowlink fame and beauty of the Seven Sisters, and my family's seafaring roots. What a delight! I discover that the trug goes back to Anglo-Saxon times as a round, very heavy wooden coracle boat. Later trugs were used as vessels for milk and other farming treasures, those kinds of artifacts that cultivate our whole life aesthetic sensibilities. Eventually, the trug was made as a lightweight basket that has become world famous, even with a royal stamp. The Royal Sussex trugs are handmade sustainably from local chestnut woods coppiced through an ancient form of woodland management that respects flora and fauna. Split willow is also required. It is naturally abundant in the close-by marshes, and yet there is an additional formal replanting program. I was relieved to hear these watery conditions for the growth of one of the materials needed to create such a holding basket. Some years earlier, I had found myself imaginatively staying in these south coast marshes, along with Paul Gallico's The Snow Goose. Greys, blues, and soft greens, with the cries of the wild birds for cooling images and sounds. I had been seared by loneliness and overheated from chemo and radiation treatments. Each sentence of Gallico's sanctuary novella, no thicker than a love letter, bears the salt-laden chill of the desolate Essex marshland in which it is set. Here, characters and emotions are distilled to almost elemental forces. They steady the nerves. Though written as the world outside seethed and erupted into the Second World War, the icy chill of the English Channel, the young, untamed Anglo-Saxon heroine Fritha, and the blown-off course Canada snow goose's emblematic love, innocence, and loyalty seem to create a lightness that allows the story to soar, as if an inverted Persephone can come to life in the winter months, even though dark Hades seems to prevail in the end. None of these words and thoughts was in my mind as the owner surprisingly arrived to unlock the door of the small place for the creation of trugs. She even spontaneously showed my cousin and me the steps required to hand create a trug. Do enjoy the sequence of photographs for this work, the intensive and demanding creation of a trug. It is a basket that is strong and sustainable enough to hold and contain life experiences that are dug from the dirt, parsnips and potatoes. Sometimes the harvested parsnips have even twisted themselves around each other as they grew in the earth. This is a celebratory basket of harvested roots. Often in deep suffering, the soul is nearly mute, wordlessly lame. A limping text of recovery is often a text of repetition, discontinuity, short fragmented episodes, clusters of images and thoughts. Yet reflections of direct relations of humankind to the cosmos can erupt. Such emergent and fleshly fragments are the suffering of humankind realizing that perhaps we have less control over our lives than we had presumed. Perhaps for life's deepest mysteries and conundrums, there is no coherent accounting, no solution, only unfolding and interweavings to which we can attend with personal feeling. Patience to tolerate this unfolding arrives invisibly, like descending dew. Today I recall that a mid-18th century Danish missionary reported from Serampore, an area on the west bank of the Hooghly River, then a Danish colony in India, and itself currently undergoing a massive restoration. He noted that the original and exceedingly fine muslin of Western Bengal was no longer discernible when it was laid out on the grass and the dew had fallen on it. You see, real human labour, grass, exquisite muslin fabric, and the dew are quietly recognized as all one. In the muslin of my mind, beloved, you are always present. May 19th, 2016.